Yes.
You want to lead the witness?
I want to show the witness.
Identify.
Yes, electronically. Yes, so that we don't have the misfortune we had with Dr. Onzibua of tendering in prosecution exhibits again. And that would be the third DNA report on record.
She has them on her laptop.
Yes, that's why I want to lead her. That's why I want to lead her, my lord. Alternatively, my lord, we could give her the documents from the court record. She looks at them and confirms if they are the ones. Because, my lord, at the moment the defense is constrained, is actually banned from the court record because of prosecution objections. My lord, there is nothing this witness reviews that isn't disclosed to us from the prosecution that isn't then carried on to her. Ordinarily, what happens is once it is already in evidence, we'll be able to pick it up and give it to the witness. However, because we want to save the time of objection, and because we don't want to, because our court record right now is so unnecessarily bulky. There are reports, my lord, on that court record that are four exhibits of the same report. My lord, if you look, for example, at the DNA analysis report, which was tendered in court, certainly it's not the one which was disclosed to us. We were disclosed the DNA analysis report, we were disclosed the color copy, we were disclosed color photos later. But for purposes of good order, we allowed the prosecution to put its evidence on the record in one form. We could have said, no, let's tender in each. Because how we got them is how we pass them on to experts. So all we are saying, my lord, is there are two options. Either we go to the court record and pick what is already tendered, and she confirms if that's what she has, or we project, because, my lord, there's no other source of this information. The source is the prosecution.
But she has them on her computer.
Yes, and now they've also been reduced into a flash, my lord. The computer does not have, because we asked for an HDMI cable for the computer. An HDMI cable wasn't provided. So we have a flash, just in case, and now we're using the port computers. My lord, just a second. I could move on, and we could continue without looking at these documents, and we could just make comments on them as well.
My lord, can we be understood? My lord, these court processes are not fast. Once a witness is on the stand, evidence must evolve from the witness organically. My lord, we cannot compromise court procedure at the expedition, at the convenience of time, or simply because we do not need more records on court records. This is a witness who must testify what they dealt in. My lord, it can't be assumed that because she mentioned document X, Y, Z, so that is either the document on record or the document that the lawyer wants to display. The witness received information electronically. I would rather that the information is so received and relied. It's not about time, my lord. This is an investigation that has taken this court now 3 years. It is not that, my lord, we do not want the defense to be evidence, but we are uncomfortable with the leading manner in which this witness is being led. My lord, in this case, the witness has said she has things on her own. Counsel has not assisted this court in all the things the witness has on her computer have been translated into the flash that is being played on the screen. My lord, every process, and it is not just a question of wasting time, it's a question of following due process. We just humbly pray that this court is not rushed through the process. Evidence should evolve organically, and let the witness be led and not just be made to confirm things arising from counsel.
The witness stated that The reports I received were received electronically. I have the information on my computer. That's what she said.
Yes, my lord.
So that's where we have been. And the defense seeks to build information from a flash disk.
Yes. So, my lord, first, from a sitting position, my learned friend says his own flash, not hers. My lord, you can use her computer. The court does not have an HDMI cable. That's the problem we have. However, my lord, either we are treated as officers of this court or we are not. Once the prosecution discloses evidence to us, and that evidence is on the record of this court, tendered in by the acceptance of both parties, either we can use it or we cannot. The insinuation implicit in all these objections seeks to divorce the defense from being officers of the court. My lord, it is a fundamental, maybe let me not choose, let me, but my lord, we shall ever take the guidance of the court. I had proceeded to ask the witness. She said she received them electronically and has them on her computer. I had proceeded to ask the witness if, to her knowledge, they have been reduced in any other form, and if she has seen them in that form. That is where the objection came. I think I am entitled, at least, my lord, to that question.
Maybe the witness can tell court. She received the documents electronically and she put them on her computer. Perhaps which other form did she store them in?
They are on the company server, so my peer reviewer could gain access, but there's been no changes at all to those reports. They were emailed from KAA, I received and downloaded. So the original is actually with KAA.
Yes. And if you are shown the original from KAA, can you confirm if it is that what KAA sent you?
Yes.
So, my lord, can I show her documents from KAA for her to confirm if they are what KAA sent her?
I think.
Much obliged, my lord. They are.
Let her have a look at what was sent to her.
Yes.
Okay.
They are there, my lord.
I think.
Yes, my lord, you have ruled. My lord, you have ruled. I want to show you documents from KAA, and I want you to confirm if those are documents that were sent to you.
Yes.
If we can start.
Mr. Kalpa,
Yes.
can we have copies of that for showing?
Yes, there. My lord, the flash from KA is what I'm showing her. And yes, all the documents there are prosecution or defense exhibits already. They are ready, and I can check the court through each exhibit. For example, the score report was exhibited, my lord, before you. The DNA report was exhibited before Justice Muata. The DFS confidential file transit letter was exhibited, it's defense exhibit number 5. Before Justice Muata, it was brought to this court by Andrew Murilu. The crime scene examination report was there. The color copy of the Annexure 2 is attached to the DNA report because it was given to us. The original that was disclosed to us didn't have that color copy. We got it in court. Yeah. So all those documents are already in court. So the question is, if the documents given to you from K are shown to you, can you identify them? My lord, I will mention each exhibit as we look at it. So, for example, prosecution exhibit number 6, I believe, is the DNA report, my lord, is prosecution exhibit number 6. The
is what was given, and that my lord, it is what she used to generate this report. My lord, we thought that the proper way is for the recipient to demonstrate to this court what she received. What she received, what she actually received, is what formed the primary basis for her observations. But counsel wants this court to assure that whatever we have is what she received, without leading evidence to actually show that she did receive so. It would be erroneous, my lord, for the defense to take this court on the void assumption. Unfortunately, my lord, evidence must come from the witness, not counsel. What we are having are statements or confirmations or positions being made by counsel.
But we just have the documents because our computer is not compatible with our paper.
My lord, we just had that from counsel, my lord. We are not privy to that process. We just had that from Mr. Katanga. We have not even seen her computer being tested in this court, and it has failed to work.
The court has no HDMI cable.
At least, my lord, we have not been privy to that failure.
It won't go into
My lord, as she's getting the documents, I think it's also important that we pick the documents from court records so court can follow. So the prosecution exhibit number, I think 6 is the DNA analysis report. The scene of crime report is prosecution exhibit number 60. So my lord, that color table which is stuck in the middle was given to us separately. That one there wasn't. The report didn't have a color copy of it, and we couldn't read the alleles. The DFS confidential transit ladder is prosecution is defense exhibit number 5. So that is just for good housekeeping. We have prosecution exhibit, the DNA report. We have defense exhibit number 5. It's written on DFS confidential transit ladder. The first signature, I think, is that of the IGP. Defense exhibit 5. Okay, my lord, maybe what I can do is that as it's being got from the archives, I can make progress in another area. Then when we have it, I think, my lord, the list, the DNA report came with the statistical calculations for Euroform. It's at the back of the report. Look at the last page of that report. The last few pages is some computer generated stuff. It looks computer generated. That's the Euroformics calculations. So those are there. The SOCO report, I think, is there. The DFS confidential file transit ladder. No, the copy of the Annex 2 is also on the DNA report. The DFS confidential file transit ladder, my lord, is the one which is missing. It's the one which contains the electropherograms and which also contains the letter dated 21st July. Maybe if you could first not disclose what is up there until. No, since you have the cable, just pull out the cable. You'll put it back when you. So that this code, so that your privacy is not violated. No, we were told there is no. My learned friend should stop saying from a sitting position that we are being dishonest. We were told that there was no HDMI cable, right? It's available now. So my lord, I will proceed as getting Defense Exhibit 5, which is called the DFS Confidential File Transit Ladder. It's the first page that has signatures on how the file moved. The first signature is the IGP.
So you want 3 documents?
Yes, all this information will be contained in 3 documents because the color copy of the DNA is in the and DE5. Then you can also when you have them all on the computer, you can project them for us. Also, maybe let me move to another area which I'll come back to. Ms. Higley, do you also have a soft copy of the report that you wrote?
Yeah.
On your computer there?
On my computer, yeah.
Maybe let's project that first.
Okay.
That's your report, yeah? Okay, now, I just want you to reach page 7, because I'll come to these other areas. Do you have a color copy of that? Of that? Is that color or black and white?
That's colour.
Okay. Okay, I want you to go to page 7 and you talk about international standards in DNA profiling and interpretation.
Yes.
As you are aware, you are before a court of law in Uganda.
Yes.
I want you to explain to my lord what those international standards are and how those international standards apply to DNA evidence in Uganda.
So, international standards in forensic DNA profiling are developed and guided by several regulatory bodies and professional organisations that promote quality, consistency and reliability in forensic practices. In the United Kingdom, we have the Forensic Science Regulator, who sets the statutory standards for forensic science providers, ensuring that DNA analysis used in the criminal justice system meets the rigorous quality and accreditation requirements. Internationally, bodies such as the International Organisation for Standardisation, ISO, published standards, including ISO 17025, which I referred to previously, for testing and calibration laboratories. Many laboratories across the world are accredited to 17025.
And just if you can stop there, is that the standard that was referred to in this case?
This was from the letter, the standard that the laboratory are striving to achieve.
Okay, so they're trying to achieve the standard ISO.
17025.
That is the letter from Dr. Mwelesa, the one she reviewed, which is the letter dated 21st of July, 2023. Okay.
There are other organisations, such as the European Network of Forensic Science Institutes and the Organisation of Scientific Area Committees in Forensic Science Biology, DNA Scientific Area Committee, OSAC. These provide technical guidelines and consensus-based standards for DNA profiling. Together, these bodies established internationally recognised frameworks that support the accuracy, reproducibility and legal reliability of forensic DNA evidence. Reference to some of the guidelines that are relevant are within the context of the case provided within my report, and where I have made explicit reference to the guidance published by the Forensic Science Regulator, these standards reflect internationally recognised best practice.
Let me ask you this question more directly, and it's about the last sentence. The standards published by the Forensic Science Regulator.
Yes.
What connection do those standards have with the standards in ISO 17025?
All laboratories in the United Kingdom, in order to process DNA to an evidential level, must be accredited to ISO 17025.
Yes, please repeat.
All laboratories processing DNA profiling for evidential court purposes must be accredited to ISO 17025.
And from the letter that you saw, just clarify what or whether the lab in this case was certified ISO according to that letter.
My Lord, does the letter speak to that?
Let me ask-
He is inviting the witness to speculate.
Okay, does the letter speak to that? The letter you saw?
I think that question was answered, because the letter dated 21st July 2023, the ISO 17025 is the standard Uganda is aspiring to achieve.
My Lord, the lab. The lab. There are labs in Uganda in government that are accredited
So the lab that was used
in this case. Briefly, we shall look at the letter. Do you have the letter?
I will try.
You can, every time you're changing the screen, you can keep, to protect your privacy, you can keep removing the cable. The HDMI cable. Just remove your cable so that
It could be that I put it straight onto the drive and I don't have internet capacity here.
a larger friend can provide.
Yeah.
Look, I mean Rahim. Court. DFS confidential file transit lab.
Yeah.
My lord, as she's doing that, maybe off record. We had a witness here. I believe the specific witness 13 who said that their lab in the GAL is ISO 17025 certified. And Mr. Mubiru.
Evidence or submission?
No, it's already on record.
We want to know how to read.
It's on record. It's on record.
He said off record.
He said it's
Off record.
Off record,
I
yes.
didn't know we were speaking off record.
Yes, I am, as we are saying that
So,
out.
my lord, he can't be speaking off record when he's on the microphone with the transcriber capturing all of his.
My microphone is off. My microphone is off. Off record, my lord.
Let's
But-
wait for the witness to comment.
No, but my lord, we did have a witness here who did answer that question. Yes. Rest
If the
in,
witness said so, we'll find
she said so. And we also had the witness who did this report who confirmed that for him, they are not. And then he brought the letter and tended to show that although they are not, they are hoping that my lord, it's been decades, they are jamming well. But maybe in the meantime, we can be on the translation.
ya imodoka yasanyure omusika kikuterezwa kandi kikumanyisa nti ebyobuhangwa bw'omuntu byabubona babiri biina kuba biri ha mundu egyo kandi baitu obukiro bwingi binakuba nibitandikwa amasuuka ag'ebitabo eddwaliro abyamaho habwokuba tigakwogebwa buli kiro kandi ebyasayirwe ha mundu byo tibiina ekyukamu byakwongera kuba obusinga obwingi busangibwa hali nga amasuuka g'ekitabo halimu tabyama habwokuba obutubyama emirundi gyona tutuuya kandi obutuuya okwo nibo okusobola kumanya oha bulungi kandi abantu abandi baleeta nk'ebicwanza baba nibabyama nakyo kikusobola kwongera ali hariho enkora eyokebera obuhanga bw'omuntu ekwikirizibwa ensi yoona kandi omupandiiko gyasiga ebiza bina kandi mwaka 2023 bakaba nibagezaho okukirakirana rundi okutunga enkora eyo yoona gambibwa nti ebikebera binakuba nibihikiriza omutindo gw'ensi yoona niho bisobole kuba nibikola omulimo oguhikire.
We done? Have you been able to see it?
I'm just loading everything up.
Okay, let's make progress. Let's make progress. We'll come back to it. Alternatively, let's just go back to your report. I get your report?
Yep.
We can put in the cable. But what can assist?
Oh, sorry. Oh, hang on. You want to go back to that? 1 sec.
Just project.
Hang on. I can project from it all here. Okay. Right.
Okay, now.
Oh, 1 sec. Okay.
So you are just told, my lord, that when you talk about FSR standards about
Yes.
this document,
Yes.
you're referring to standards that I didn't understand. Are you referring to, does that reflect ISO standards?
Yes, so the ISO standards provide the backbone for all the regulations set by our forensic science regulator. And in the laboratories I've set up in Oman, that equally is the standard they are trying to achieve. So globally, it appears that the ISO is the standard for the laboratories.
Okay. Now, in your report, you talk about at page 5.
Yes,
Talk about recovery of items.
yes,
I want you just to explain if I want you just to go to your conclusion on that recovery at page 7.
yes,
Yeah?
yes.
I want you just we shall go back into the recovery, but I want us to start with a conclusion. And even before we start with a conclusion, can you explain to this court why the recovery of items, if the recovery of items is important in your analysis, and if so, why?
In order to robustly evaluate the significance of a DNA profile, we need to investigate any opportunities for inadvertent transfer of DNA through the recovery at the scene and through the DNA profiling process. If it was confirmed that the handling of items at the scene may have taken place without the practices that are outlined in the incident scene examination, which is our Forensic Science Regulator Guideline 6. In my opinion, this could seriously undermine the validity of the samples and the associated DNA results.
So I want you to very briefly tell us what are some of the guidelines for the handling of exhibits. Generally, what should a forensic investigator who is handling exhibits, what should he do?
They should be wearing full personal protective equipment, including gloves, hairnet, foot covering, and a scene suit. And after every single contact made, either the gloves are rigorously cleaned,
After every contact made with what?
any item or surface, the gloves should either be rigorously cleaned or preferentially changed. This preventing the gloves becoming a vector of transfer of DNA within the scene.
Okay, so let's say that I don't change the gloves. I just don't understand. If I'm wearing gloves, my understanding is I'm therefore not contaminated.
You are not leaving your DNA behind, but those gloves, after every contact with any surface, will be picking up DNA. If those gloves are therefore not changed or rigorously cleaned, the gloves become a vector for the transfer of DNA to other areas and other items at the scene.
Now, in your review, briefly take us through and explain to this court. Firstly, did you review the recovery of items?
I reviewed the crime scene report, yes.
Review the crime scene report.
Yes.
And do you recall who signed that report?
AIP Emmanuel.
Do you have the other name?
Oh, 1 second, sorry. Alugu.
So, now, you began by telling us that I think you already dealt with the fact that you found from the images from figure 1, we already said the gun was recovered on the bed sheet. Did you capture that image in your report?
We are really getting this tab about this, and now this is really getting out of hand. Because now, seem to be lost as to whether Mr. Katanga who authored this report and this witness is only coming to confirm, or it is this witness who authored this report and therefore should testify about the contents of the report.
Much obliged. Let me change the question.
The witness,
Yes, let me
you
change the
can lead
question.
the witness to a particular part, let the witness
Take us.
take us.
No, my lord, I'm sorry. I had previously she had already spoken about the bed sheet. So, but now maybe let's go to the item on recovery of exhibits. And you had said, my lord, I don't know what she had said. She had said it had been she had reviewed the
So for report,
software report.
signed by AIP Emmanuel.
Okay. Now, just take us through what you established.
So I understand from the records provided that the police recovered a number of items, including a firearm, item 4, from the home address of Henry and Molly Katanga. From images contained within the crime scene examination report, it is apparent that the firearm, along with other items, were recovered from a bed in the master bedroom.
I want you first to stop there. And I want you to show us from your report where we can see that the firearm was recovered from a bed.
So on page 6, figure 1 is showing the bed with markers 4 and 5, along with the 4 being the firearm, 5 being the projectile or casing. And I understand that picture was taken in situ before anything was moved.
Now, just be clear to my lord, what is the impact in the context of this case of that pistol being found on Henry and Molly Katanga's bed?
My expectation would be to detect DNA from both Molly and Henry purely because that firearm is on the bedding of a bed which they both sleep in.
Okay.
My expectation would be to detect DNA from both Molly and Henry because the pistol was found on the bed.
And just for clarity, you had said something about, could you just clarify why you'd expect their DNA to be on that bed sheet?
Again, while you sleep, you are shedding DNA throughout the night, and some people do dribble, so leaving saliva, and you will be in contact with those bed sheets. They are not generally washed every day, and so the level of DNA would accumulate, leaving plenty of DNA in order to subsequently transfer to anything which was then subsequently put on the bed.
Okay, now let's go back up to your report again. There was a sentence after that.
So equally, from the images provided within the crime scene report, the firearm can be seen to be held, including in the area of the trigger housing, by a gloved hand and photographed.
Can you take us to that image?
So here, this appears to be a gloved hand, thumb here with a finger here in contact with the trigger housing.
Now, Miss Indy, you got that? Where did you get that image from?
That's from the crime scene report. The figure 13 being their reference.
My Lord, can the witness be given prosecution exhibit 60 to see if that image is in prosecution exhibit 60? Figure 13. Huh? P60. We can look at it. You just show it to us in that report. This prosecution exhibit 60. I want you to confirm if that's the same image you have.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Just show us.
This is the colour version. I only obtained a black and white version, but this is where I have taken the image from.
What page is it on?
Am I sorry?
What page is that?
That is page 5 of their report.
Page 5 figure. What figure?
Figure 13.
Now, apart from, okay, first of all, can you just confirm where the finger, what the finger is touching?
The photo appears to indicate that the figure is in contact with the trigger housing.
Can you explain to my Lord why that is relevant in the context of this case?
The gun was swabbed twice. The first at the scene was the trigger, and then once in the laboratory, a combined sample of the trigger housing and the trigger was submitted for DNA profiling.
And which results do we have?
The only swab which I have information that was sent for DNA profiling was the secondary swab, which was from the trigger and the trigger housing.
How many swabs are those of the trigger and trigger housing?
One combined swab from the trigger and the trigger housing was submitted.
There's one swab and there's contact on the part that was swabbed.
Yes.
What would be the impact of that contact?
The true impact is unknown, as I have no contemporaneous notes made by the scene examiner as to what precautions they took when handling. Whilst that is a gloved hand, I do not know if that is a clean glove or if that is the same glove which has been used and worn by that individual processing the scene. If it is the latter, there's a high likelihood that that glove will provide a vector for transferring DNA to that area, and it would render any DNA profiles obtained meaningless.
So I just want to understand you properly. I'm going to give you an example. if there was one single individual who came to this court and said, we recovered all the exhibits, and that as part of his PPE, he wore gloves. And if that is the individual who recovered this gun, what would be the impact of that recovery?
Speculative.
Yes. I thought we are dealing with experts.
An expert can give information that is based on their
Yes.
scientific knowledge.
That's what I mean.
If
Student needs to guess or to give information without basis. But if she's an expert, in her expert knowledge, what would the impact of such a thing be? This is
if those gloves were not regularly cleaned or changed, there is a very high likelihood that that glove contains DNA and would then subsequently transfer that DNA onto the area contact was made. Therefore, it would not be possible by using the DNA profiling to determine whether DNA detected in this area was actually truly deposited on that area, or it had inadvertently been introduced by the crime scene officer. Therefore, no robust evaluation could be made about the significance of any DNA recovered.
So, let me ask you one more question about the gun, and then I'm going to go to other items recovered. Staying on that page, from the totality of those two pictures,
Yes,
the gun on the bed
yes,
and the gun, the trigger housing being held by a gloved hand.
yes,
In the totality of those two things,
yes.
what would be the totality of that evidence? What would be the impact of those two pictures on the DNA evidence in this case?
In my opinion, unless it can be demonstrated that the glove used to hold that weapon was clean on, had had no contact with anything else, and the fact that the gun was recovered from the bedding, renders any DNA profiling results obtained meaningless in the context of this case.
Now, from what was provided to you, is there any evidence that was provided to you showing removal of gloves?
No, I have no documentation from the examiners. Ordinarily, when reviewing the cases, I would receive full examination notes by the scene goers, which documents the personal protective equipment worn, when they changed their gloves, the order in which the exhibits were handled, and who handled them. In the absence of any information, in my opinion, there's a high likelihood of inadvertent transfer, and any DNA profiling results should be not considered.
Now, in the scene of crime report, are there other images of the gun at the scene?
Yes, there are.
Okay, can you tell my lord where they are?
They appear at the back of the document. It's a series of photos. The page number isn't labelled, but it is photograph documented as 13, the report.
Show my lord. Where is the gun in those two pictures?
The first image appears to show the gun on the floor, but I'm unable to confirm that.
Just stop there and tell my lord what would be the impact of the gun on the floor.
It is apparent from the scene that there was significant blood at the scene, and therefore by placing an item onto the floor increases the risk of the introduction of DNA onto an item purely by it being moved.
So why do you think it's the floor?
The lines on the image possibly indicate tiles. However, I
Show the
cannot
court.
confirm.
Where do you see the tiles?
So here, the lines, possibly. I don't know. There's no description of the photo other than closed view of the pistol. I do not know where it was actually taken, but it is not on the bedding. So it has been moved prior to that photo being taken.
And where is the second image of the gun?
The second image is below, so this is referred to as photograph 14. Now, I am not certain whether this is a zoomed in image of figure 13 within the document or not, but this one does tend to show feet at the bottom, where that's not evident on the figure 13.
What is being done to the gun?
I can't see a hand, but from how it's being photographed, it appears it is being handled, but I cannot confirm.
What can you see in the picture?
There appears to be a set of feet at the bottom of the image, which again are not covered. They are just standard shoes.
Okay. Now, if you could just go back to your report, without reading verbatim, which I'll read the verbatim part. There is what you call the next paragraph, maybe from where we were. Now, but I want to ask you about that paragraph, please. Maybe you first read the paragraph.
So additional exhibits were reportedly subsequently created from the firearm, namely the magazine, item 4.1, and live ammunition found in the bullet chamber 4.2. And a swab from the trigger 4.3 was created.
Okay, now just stop there. I want to start from the end. From the information you are given in the DNA report,
Yes.
do we have the DNA results from the swab?
There is no information at all that this sample was ever submitted for DNA profiling.
When you say submitted, do you mean it was not taken to the lab?
I do not know. I do have the image in figure 2 to indicate that it was submitted to the laboratory, but it was not further processed. So there is no DNA profiling result available for that exhibit.
What is the impact of a swab on the trigger before another swab?
So this emitted from the trigger and trigger housing, therefore becomes a second swab of the same area. And scientifically, the most meaningful swab is that first swab which was taken.
What's wrong with the second swab?
The second swab, if the swabbing from the trigger was efficient, it should have removed all the DNA that was present. Therefore, the second swab being taken becomes suboptimal in the context of what you're trying to achieve.
I just need to understand. The first swab would have what you need. Are you saying the second swab would just be contamination?
No, the first swab is labelled as the trigger.
Yes.
The second swab was a combination of the trigger and trigger housing. If the sampling from the trigger was effective and all DNA was removed by that swab, technically none of the DNA recovered from the sample from the trigger and trigger housing should contain DNA from the trigger. So we just do not know the significance, the true DNA environment of that trigger, given that only the second swab was submitted.
Now, you also talk about recovery of a magazine.
Yes.
You have read.
Yes.
And you go, maybe just read the next paragraph and then I'll ask the question.
So there is no information relating to who produced these exhibits. It is not possible from the nomenclature of the exhibits to determine the initials and name of the police officer, which would be standard practice, and whether it was one or multiple officers. I have no continuity of the taking of or the recovery of those swabs at all, or who made safe the firearm.
Okay, now you may not have that information, but I want to give you a scenario. One officer recovered all those exhibits. What impact would that have on this case?
Again, if it can be shown that there was robust anti-contamination methods, it's not unusual for the same officer to be recovering everything. However, there is no information to confirm this. And if it's the same individual who has not conformed to standard anti-contamination methods, it again renders the DNA very questionable, if not meaningless.
Now, I want to go to the next paragraph, and I just want to ask you a question about that. I'll read the paragraph ourselves. But you talk there about the recovery of the firearm and what you call the make safe procedure
Yes,
that may be taken at the scene.
yes.
Now, I'll read the paragraph, but my question is, the same officer found the gun on the bed, picked the gun and made it safe. What impact would that have on the DNA in this case?
From the number of cases I've worked with, the make safe procedure does involve contact with the firearm in order to remove the magazine and render the firearm incapable of injuring anybody. Therefore, this contact could again transfer DNA around the firearm, and therefore, whilst the trigger and trigger guard was targeted, it does not mean that that is actually where the DNA was originally deposited.
Now, so we reviewed the gun on the bed, the gun being photographed, the gun being safe, the gun leaves the house. What does the impact of where the gun goes after that? What does it have any impact on the DNA evidence? And do you have any comment on that process?
A standard case review involves confirming the continuity of an exhibit, where the exhibits were stored, how they were stored, were they subjected to any heat or dampness, and how they were then submitted to the laboratory. I have no continuity at all of these exhibits from scene to laboratory.
So, just so we end on this movement point, the gun eventually does reach the lab.
Yes, it does.
Just from the handling, do you have any comment on the way the gun was handled in the lab? Can you take us to that if it at all appears in your?
So within the laboratory, I'll just
Yes.
find the right exhibits.
The gun then goes to the lab. Does you have any visibility on? Yes, yes. On the lab. Once it gets to the lab, how it's handled. Yes.
So this is specific to the firearm, Exhibit 4. This is figure 18 taken from the DNA document.
Now just stop there. My Lord, if the witness could be given prosecution exhibit number 6, the DNA report, just to confirm if it has that figure 18. And if the clerk could help us, the prosecution.
And this is where I have cut and pasted this image, figure 18, into my report.
So just describe for us what is on figure 18.
So on figure 18, you can see that the firearm is photographed with the packaging and the grips are actually under the packaging.
What impact does that have on the DNA evidence?
Within the laboratory, we have had instances of full DNA profiles obtained from admin assistants who have merely booked the exhibit into the system. This could only have occurred via the packaging. No laboratory will now photograph an exhibit with the exhibit bag, and the exhibit bag is now washed down and never put on the desk that the exhibit is on. As we know, the bags themselves can introduce DNA to exhibits.
But in our particular case,
So in this particular case, we can see that not only is some of the bag alongside, it is actually covering some of the firearm. Therefore, there's a high likelihood that DNA from this bag has been introduced to the firearm. And again, it renders any robust evaluation as to significance of DNA from that firearm irrelevant.
yeah, that would be true for contamination of a lab assistant. But in this case, in the context of this case, would it have any impact on the DNA profiles of any of the persons of interest?
I do not know how the packaging was stored at the scene. If the packaging was stored within the bedroom and on surfaces within the bedroom, I would expect that packaging to have picked up DNA from both Molly and Henry Katanga, and then potentially having transferred to the firearm. So this again is another possible mechanism of transfer of DNA inadvertently to the gun, which is not incident related.
If all the exhibits are stored together in one bag,
Yes.
does that have an impact as well?
Yes, obviously, if you have different exhibits together in the same bag, there's the opportunity for DNA to cross-transfer between the exhibits.
Look at figure 1 on the DNA report. On the DNA report, just next to the one you're holding.
Sorry.
What do you see there?
Figure 1 appears to be 7 bags, the contents of which I do not know. And then subsequent images show individual exhibits being taken out. However, there appear to be multiple exhibits within the same exhibit bag. This again is very poor practice.
You can take a translation.
Zora ebintu byona ebiba biri omukiika ekibusika ekikolebwamu nsanga tukola muno okusobola okwetegereza bulungi okuzoora ebyobuhangwa kandi kino kiba kitaliniku kusobola kalibaniza ebikuba abantu ababani bazoora ebintu bino baba balina kuba bajwaire bulungi bajwaire nko mu mikono kumutwe amagulu okulola nti kibahayire mukisa gwona okusobola okuhindura ebikuba bitungirwe okuva mu kibera okujwara nga obuveera ha mikono kimanyisa nti omuntu ajja kuleka enyuma ekintu kyona ekikwatagana ha buhangwa bwe baitu kakuba baba batakuhindurana bakimanyisa nti kakuba batakuhindurana lundi batakunaaba engalo buli kaire kimanyisa nti baija kuhindura ebikuba nibiruga okubeera akaguru kamu ekihandiiko eky'omukulu eyali nakuura ekicweka ekyo kandi enyo kino ekihandiiko kikateekebwaho omukono omugufu omunyoro olugu Emmanuel kandi okurugia hali ebihandiiko bya polisi ebintu bingi bikazoolebwa ekicweka kino halimu emundu engoye n'ebintu bingi bingi kandi nti emundu okusangibwa ha kitabu kikuba nikimanyisa nti ajja kuzoolwaho ebyobuhangwa by'abantu bombi babiri habwokuba boona bakaba bali ha kitabu ekyo mu kizibu kyekimu ekisaniike namba 13 kikwoleka haliho nka akaara akakwasire ha mundu kandi kino kinjiza muno ha musango guno okuba nti emundu ekasangwa hamu n'akasanduuko akakwahura amasasi kandi nti byona bikaheebwayo okwetegerezebwa bete mazima gali nti talina mazima lundi okugumya nti akaba nakola ebintu bino akaba ajwaire akaveera hangalo lundi waha kandi kakuba nti ekyalo kino ekikuolekaho nga ekisani kya kaara kakuba kiri nti akaba tajwaire kaveera lundi akaba atakuhindura kino nakyo kinakuba nkihindura ebirugire obukebeera bwokuba kuba nikimanyisa nti akaikara nayisaniza lundi nayongerayoga ebyobuhangwa okuruga ha kintu ekimu kugenda ha kintu ekindi mukwetegereza kwe nti emundu habwokuba ekasangibwa obusika kikumanyisa kikuweereza ebyazairwe amaani okuba ebisirikirwaho kandi nti kyamagezi muno kuba bitagenderwaho okurugiirira omulingo ebisani byateirwemu yoga baitu kandi kiri
Understand this properly from your expertise in the context of a suicide.
On the barrel was a clear made profile of Henry.
Now, Now, you also say that there was no, maybe you can continue how the blood would have been, how the gun would have been examined for blood, and what impact it has on the rest of the exhibits from the gun.
So at a minimum, I would have expected that gun to have been examined for blood using resources such as laboratory lights and equally aided with magnification, and that any suspected stains would then be tested presumptively to confirm the presence of blood or equally other biological materials. Equally, within the examination notes, I would expect any laboratory to demonstrate on sketch or photograph of the weapon the specific areas swabbed where any blood staining was present, the areas which were presumptively tested, and in the absence of any of this information, I am not able to establish whether blood was present on the firearm, confirm the extent of the areas swabbed, or determine if blood was present in the samples that were recovered. Blood is a rich source of DNA, and therefore, if any blood was incorporated into the DNA sample, it would give the impression that that person has left more DNA, where actually all that's happened is a richer source of their DNA was present. So that then makes any interpretation of the significance of major, minor, irrelevant and misleading.
Now,
I beg your pardon, since blood is a richer source of DNA,
If
finding
so, if you then obtain a DNA profile with a strong information of DNA against a weak information of DNA, but we don't know that blood was present, the misinterpretation that the stronger DNA was from the last person or the person that held is actually incorrect and misleading.
maybe I'm also a bit, you're saying that blood, when you find blood, that you'll find more DNA in blood.
Yes.
For example, in skin cells.
Yes, there's far more DNA in blood than skin cells.
And so if you found someone that contributed skin cells and someone that contributed blood,
Yes.
the person with blood would be a major profile.
Yes, it would be far stronger. And without knowledge of whether blood was in that sample, this can lead to the misinterpretation of the DNA profile.
Now, I have one more question about blood and then I move to another topic. You've seen the context. You've explained the possible context, the relevance of blood to Henry Katanga. What about the relevance of blood in respect of Molly Katanga?
There was significant fine blood spatter at the scene. Therefore, it would be within my range of expectations that blood from Molly would be throughout the scene. Equally, if the glove used to handle the firearm had any blood staining on, that again could happily transfer blood onto the firearm.
So you make a conclusion, if you just take us to the conclusion on blood.
So without this information, I'm unable to exclude the possibility that blood was present on the firearm, including in a pattern that may have assisted in understanding its proximity to gunshot-generated event, and or whether blood was incorporated on the swab that was recovered from the trigger and trigger guard housing in particular.
Now, I want us to very briefly go into now a slightly more technical area. DNA.
Yes.
I want you to, as simply as possible and as briefly as possible, explain to my Lord what you are looking for when you say you're looking for DNA.
Can you rephrase for what you mean? The process?
The DNA profile. In a DNA profile,
Yes.
what am I supposed to find?
Okay. So DNA is inherited from your parents, half from your mum and half from your dad. A DNA profile from a single person will have a maximum of 2 pieces of information at each area. If mum and dad have given you the same piece of information, it will appear on the graph as one peak, but it's actually 2 copies, one on top of the other.
DNA profile from a person we have.
A maximum of 2 pieces of information per area looked at, whilst visually there may be only one piece of information on a graph. This is in actual fact 2 pieces of the same information on top of each other.
How many areas do you look at?
The technique used in Uganda is Verifiler Plus, and I believe it's 23 or 25 areas looked at.
So, just so we're on the same page, you're saying that in all those 23 areas, there are 2 pieces of information
Yes, from a single person.
from a
Yes.
single person.
Yes.
One from the father
Yes.
and one from the
Mother.
mother.
Yes.
However, you're saying that it is possible in those areas to find one piece of information.
Yes.
And why is that? That's what I didn't understand.
So this is where mum and dad have provided offspring with the same piece of information. Therefore, the child has 2 copies of the same piece of information, and that is represented on the graph as one piece of information, but it's actually the 2 inheritance on top of each other.
Maybe you can demonstrate it for us.
Can I
using
show you?
An electrophoregram of Mole Katanga, using a DNA profile of Mole Katanga.
Just bring up. Okay. So this is. Are you?
Now, just.
Perhaps I got lost where you say that it's possible to find only one piece of information,
Yes.
and this is where the mom and dad have a child with.
They have both given the child the same piece of information, and therefore visually on the graph it just looks like one. I don't know if Molly's got any. Yeah, Molly has.
So, I want us to look at, my lord, the profile is Defense Exhibit 5. As she's projecting it, I don't know if you can look at it later, but even the court can look at it there, but also can have Defense Exhibit 5. We're just trying to understand. So now you talk. Let's look at the profile clearly. In the DNA, what tells us that this is Mole Katanga? What you're showing us? How do we know that that's Mole Katanga and not?
So during the DNA profiling analysis, each sample is given a unique identifier which follows it through the entire process. In this instance, we look at the sample number, I don't know where it's showing, up here in this corner here.
Yes, what's the sample
Can I
number in the
point-
corner there?
Where am I pointing?
No, just read what's the sample number in the corner once it's sample name.
So the sample number is 68 2Y23S004
And where do you get it from that that's Mole Katanga?
on the DNA report.
Okay. Maybe if you could you have the DNA report there. It may take a little bit of time, but we just want you to. I'm going to ask you just a few questions about DNA generally. I want us all just to be on the same page.
So on page 17, it lists all the exhibits which have been submitted for DNA profiling, and sample number 4, ending S004, is a buccal swarm sample of Molly.
So it was marked M what?
M4,
M4.
yes,
So what was swab M4
yes.
was then translated into 682. Maybe read for us the whole number yourself.
So the specimen ID is 682Y23S004. All samples in this case have the same starting specimen ID. It's the S and then the number, which makes it unique.
Okay, so S004. So now, what is this document that you put up to my lord?
So this is the document which contains all the electropherograms or EPGs, which I referred to as
The DFS.
the DFS confidential file.
Okay, now. So now we are at Mole Katanga. You
Yes.
told us about pieces of information.
Yes.
So what are pieces of information?
So on the graph, looking on your left-hand side, this first area, each of the areas above gives it its name. And so each area then has 2 pieces of information relating to it.
So now I want us to go slow. So now, just show us by pointing using the, I don't know if you have a pointer or
Yeah.
something.
It's
The-
not,
The pointer doesn't get to the screen. Use
No.
the mouse. Use the mouse.
yeah, I'll use my mouse.
Now, when you go to the mouse,
Yes.
where is the first DNA location?
So the first DNA location, I'll zoom in for you.
You go up.
It's labelled D3S1358, and simply this means,
So go to the box. Is that the one in the box?
yes, the labels in the boxes here are the specific areas of DNA that are targeted.
So what is that thing called? What's D3?
So D3 is merely that this area is on chromosome 3.
Okay. Now, before we go to the information, you have told us about 20-something areas.
Yes.
Just show us all the areas first of all.
So
So what is the next area?
the colour merely dictates fluorescent labelling during the process so we can visualise. So if I go through the blue colour, there's 5 areas. The
No,
green,
I think it's easier for us. You just go back up. Yeah?
yes.
Just show us location by location chronologically. So if you start at D3,
So we go D3, VWA, D16, CSF, D6.
now just stop there. So you're telling me that those boxes, wherever they end, what is below those boxes is what you mean by piece of information.
My lord,
Yes.
is that what she has said?
I'm asking.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, my lord, please direct questions.
My lord, we need to understand. And I need to understand.
We
So I'm
shall,
asking
we
to
shall understand, but my lord,
Okay, let me
we can't
rephrase.
allow Mr. Kalwanga to testify.
Let me rephrase. Below the box, what is that thing below the box?
So these are the pieces of information. So the DNA is broken down by size, and each size relates to a specific area of DNA we look at.
Now,
And so when I'm referring to pieces of information, it is that below the label here.
so now at D3,
Yes.
how many pieces of information are there?
There appears visually to only be one piece of information.
Okay.
However, this will be created by two, one from the mum and one from the dad. So they have both given Molly the same piece of information, which presents itself on the graph as one peak.
So what is there a number? What's number 16?
16 is merely when we're looking at the technique that undermines all DNA profiling is called STR, or short tandem repeats. These are short pieces of DNA that repeat happily, and it's the number of repeats of a specific sequence that give the number here. So in this instance, at the area of D3, the repeat targeted was seen 16 times.
Now, so there's one piece of information, and what is that information?
So that indicates that at that area D3, Molly, her full designation would be written as 1616.
Okay, she got one. So the 16 is what you get from your parent.
Yes, so she has received a 16 from her mum and a 16 from her dad.
Okay, now just slow down. I want to understand it in simple terms. You get one piece of information from your father.
Yes.
And one piece of information
from your mother.
From your mother. Mole Katanga at this particular location has only one piece of information.
It visually looks like one piece of information, but it is actually two, one on top of the other. So visually just looking at one peak.
What's the number below 16?
The number below is the height. So this is how well this piece of information has fluoresced as it passes through a laser during the separation
So what's the
phase.
height?
So the height here is 18,000, which is a strong DNA profile.
Okay. So I don't know if I should continue, break, or I just want us to understand this graph, and then we come back to DNA. So maybe
You shall need the transcription to understand, at least for me. I am not.
let me try and ask a few more questions.
No, we are not lost. Our concern is testifying, so we will need the transcription to disseminate from what the lawyer is testifying from what the witness is actually saying. So we will need that transcription.
My Lord, I need to be protected.
No, but that is
That is exactly what he's doing.
But okay, let me ask it like
But
this.
sometimes you ask me in a manner.
So because we understand it.
No.
But,
My Lord, our understanding, surprisingly, is different. So let him not assume that his understanding is the actual.
No,
We have two
what I mean
different
by
understanding.
my Lord, is we're trying to understand what the witness is saying. Yes. So
I'm trying to understand.
So let me do it like this. You have all that there, right?
Yes.
That document has different heights on the graph, right?
Yes, correct.
Now, at the first location, can you show the court where the first location is?
This one,
It's called what?
D3.
Where does it start and where does it end?
The red markers indicate the area of the region of D3 where the known DNA is found.
And then you have a long line with a 16.
Yes,
And you're saying that that 16 is Mole Katanga's DNA at that location.
yes,
From both her father and her mother.
correct.
Let's go to the next location to understand.
So this is VWA.
Okay?
And you have
What is VWA?
That is just a name given to a different area of DNA within this technique.
Okay.
And you can see here the difference between D3 and VWA is that we have two pieces of information. This is a 15 and a 17. This means that mum and dad have given Molly different pieces of information, hence they are seen as two peaks on the graph.
And when you add the heights together, it's roughly the same as the other one.
Yes, in a well amplified and copied profile, the combination of two peak heights should be relatively the same as that of a single peak, because this is actually two copies of the same piece of DNA.
Okay, so you have all these, so all of these are locations. Altogether, there are how many locations on this graph?
So we have 5, 9, 13, 18. There's 23 areas, and in addition to that, you have a sex determining test, and equally one area is specific for male DNA.
Show us the sex determining test here.
So the sex determining test is here, termed AMEL, which is amelogenin. Females will have 2 copies of the X chromosome. If it's a male, you will equally have a Y peak here. So this is Molly, she is female, so she has 2 copies of the X. And before the amelogenin, this area here is specific for male DNA only.
So, my question to you is, every piece of information on that graph is where Molly gets them from where?
This is inherited from her mum and her dad.
So 50% of that is her dad and 50% is her mom.
Correct.
So if I do a paternity test, for example,
Yes.
you know I am somebody's father if
Yes.
we share 50% of our DNA.
Correct. Yes.
Now, in the context of this case,
Yes.
you have samples of mother Molly and daughter Patricia.
Yes.
What impact does the fact that Patricia and Molly share half of their DNA have in the context of this case?
Through inheritance alone, Patricia and Molly will share 50% of their DNA.
So, for example, if you're saying you found Patricia and Molly's DNA on a cat,
Yes.
what impact will the fact that they are close relatives have on who contributed more, for example?
So when you consider that 50% will be shared between mother and daughter, it means that where they do share, it will artificially elevate the DNA of Molly, therefore indicating that she is contributing more DNA than she truly is.
Okay? Now, if I go to a sample that has more than 2 pieces of information,
Yes.
what does that mean?
That indicates that there's DNA from more than one individual present.
What do you call that DNA?
This will be referred to generically as a mixed DNA profile.
So, does the DNA become more complicated the more people contribute?
Yes, it does.
Okay, maybe let me ask the question like this. What's the impact on the number of contributors?
As the number of contributors increases, the chance that an individual's DNA will be present purely by chance increases, and the statistical evaluation can get incredibly complex to the extent that we are not able to produce a meaningful result for you.
So, when you have 3 contributors,
Yes,
and one is a mother and the other is a daughter,
yes,
say on the gun,
yes.
what impact does that have on the DNA result?
The DNA profiling result itself is unaffected, the initial interpretation will indicate whether you can or cannot eliminate someone. It's when it gets to the statistical evaluation that the information that a mother and a daughter have contributed is highly significant, and it requires specialist software, which, from the information I have, Euroformics cannot cope with.
Before you reach even Euroformics, in the context of our case, in the DNA report in our case, was the analyst, from the analysis that you've seen, able to distinguish DNA that Molly and Patricia shared, and able to attribute this, although it's shared, it's for Patricia, and this part is for Molly? Was they able to do that?
Each of the DNA profiling, the complexity was different, and we agree that we are unable to eliminate individuals, but the mixture interpretation is far more complex, and so we merely compare the references of the individuals, and we reach the stage that that individual could have contributed DNA. It's only when the statistical evaluation is run that we're able to understand the significance of their DNA matching, and the more contributors, the greater the likelihood it's matching by chance.
Let me ask my question again. You have on the gun, according to that report, DNA of Molly and DNA of Patricia.
There's
But
DNA which
understood-
match them, yes.
I've understood you're saying that when it comes to calculating who contributed what impact does the fact that you have Patricia and Molly there, what impact does it have on that sample?
So the presence of both Patricia and Molly, it will artificially inflate Molly's contribution to that DNA result, and therefore any percentages of contribution which are produced by the statistical software needs to be treated with extreme caution and really re-evaluated and not taken any further. It doesn't help progress actually the true contribution of an individual.
I don't know if I continue or if I should stop. In the guidance of the court.
I think that we talk to the transcriber to arrange today's report. We can study it tomorrow, so that when we come back on Wednesday, properly.
Much of that. We can listen to the translation. Or we can start with the translation.
Quiet.
Let's hear. Let's hear.
Yeah.